Chapter 8. On land, the old fisherman stopped to light a pipe, and then, with the pipe clenched between his teeth, he walked home, carrying Edward atop his left shoulder as if he were conquering a hero. The fisherman balanced him there, placing a hand on Edward's back. He walked with him and talked in a soft voice. "You'll like Nellie, you will," said the old man. "She's had her sadness, but she's an all-right girl." Edward looked at the small town, blanketed and dark, a jumble of buildings huddled together by the ocean stretching out far and wide. And he thought that he would like anything and anybody that was not at the bottom of the sea. "Hello, Lawrence," called a woman from the front of a shop. "What you got?" "Fresh catch," said the fisherman. "Fresh rabbit from the sea." He lifted his cap to the lady to say hello and kept walking. "There you are now," said the fisherman. He took his pipe out of his mouth and pointed with the stem of it toward a star in the sky. "There's your North Star right there. Don't never have to be lost when you know where that is." Edward considered the brightness of the small star. "Do they all have names?" he wondered. "Listen at me," said the fisherman, talking to a toy. "Oh, well, here we are then." And with that, Edward still on his shoulder, the fisherman walked up a stone-lined path into a little green house. "Look here, Nellie," he said. "I brought you something from the sea." "I don't want nothing from the sea," came a voice. "Ah, now, don't be like that, Nellie. Come on and see." The old woman stepped out of her kitchen, wiped her hands on an apron, and when she saw Edward, she dropped the apron and clapped her hands together. "Oh, Lawrence, you brought me a rabbit," she said. "Direct from the sea," said Lawrence. He took Edward off his shoulder, stood him up on the floor, and held him out his hands to make a deep bow to Nellie. "Oh," said Nellie, "here." She clapped her hands together, and Lawrence passed Edward to her. Nellie held the rabbit out in front of her and looked him over from tip to toe. She smiled. "Have you ever in your life seen anything so fine?" she said. Edward felt immediately that Nellie was a very smart woman. "She's beautiful," said Nellie. For a moment, Edward was confused. Was there some other object in the room? "What will I call her?" "Susanna?" said Lawrence. "Just right," said Nellie. "Susanna." She looked deep into Edward's eyes. "First off, Susanna will need some new clothes, won't she?" So the fisherman brought Edward home to his wife, and she thinks it's a girl and is going to call him Susanna. Chapter 9. Uh-oh. He's in girl clothes now. And so Edward Tulane became Susanna. Nellie sewed several outfits for him, a pink one with ruffles for special occasions, a simple dress fashioned out of a flowered cloth for everyday use, and a long white gown made of cotton for Edward to sleep in. In addition, she redid his ears, stripping them of the few pieces of fur that remained, and designed a new pair for him. "Oh," she said when she was done, she looks lovely." He was horrified at first. He was, after all, a boy rabbit. He did not want to be dressed as a girl, and the outfits, even the special occasion dress, were so simple and plain, not at all what he was used to. They lacked the elegance and artistry of his old clothes. But then Edward remembered laying on the ocean floor, the dirt in his face and the stars so far away, and he told himself, "What difference does it make anyway? Wearing a dress won't hurt me." Besides, life in the little greenhouse with the fisherman and his wife was nice. Nellie loved to bake, and she spent the day in the kitchen. She put Edward on the counter and leaned him up against the flour canister and arranged his dress around his knees, and she bent his ears so that he could hear her better. And then she would get to work kneading the dough for bread, rolling out dough for cookies and pies. The kitchen would smell great, like baking bread and the sweet smells of cinnamon and sugar and cloves, and the windows would steam up, and while Nellie worked, she talked the whole time. She told Edward about her children, her daughter, Lolly, who was a secretary, her boys, Ralph, one who was in the army, and Raymond, who had died of pneumonia when he was only 5 years old. He drowned inside of himself, said Nellie. It was a horrible, terrible thing. The worst thing anybody should ever have to watch. Someone die right in front of your eyes and not be able to help them. I dream about him even now at night. Nellie wiped her tears with the back of her hand. She smiled at Edward. I suppose you think I'm crazy, talking to a toy, but it seems to me that you're listening, Susanna. And Edward was surprised to discover that he was listening. Before, when Abilene talked to him, everything sounded boring and pointless, and he didn't really listen. But now, the stories Nellie told stuck with him almost as important in the world as he had ever thought anything else had been, and he listened to her like his life depended on it. It made him wonder if some of the muck from the ocean floor had gotten inside his head and damaged his brain somehow. In the evening, Lawrence came home from the sea, and there was dinner, and Edward sat at the table with the fisherman and his wife. He sat in an old, wooden high chair, and while at first he was mortified, a high chair, after all, are for babies, he liked being up high now, looking over the table instead of staring at a tablecloth like he had at the Tulane house. It all felt like he was part of things. Every night after dinner, Lawrence said that he would go out and get some fresh air and that maybe Susanna would like to come with them. And he would place Edward on his shoulder so that he was up high like the first night, and they would walk through town, bringing him back home to Nellie. They went outside, and Lawrence would light his pipe and Ed would sit on his shoulder. And then if the night was clear, Lawrence said the names of the stars one at a time. Andromeda, Pegasus, pointing to them with the stem of his pipe. Edward loved looking at the stars, and he loved the sound of the constellation names. They were sweet in his ears. Sometimes, though, staring up at the night sky, Edward remembered Pellegrina, saw again her dark and glowing eyes, and a chill would go through him. Warthogs, he thought, witches. But Nellie, before she put him in bed each night, sang him a lullaby, a song about mockingbirds that did not sing and a diamond ring that would not shine, and the sound of Nellie's voice soothed the rabbit, and he would forget about Pellegrina. Life for a very long time was sweet. And then Lawrence and Nellie's daughter came for a visit. Chapter 10 next time.